And I felt honored, so honored to be asked. But I'm really bad about asking further questions of like...
Hello and welcome to Did I Do That? It's a podcast about graphic designers and the mistakes we make on the way to making something great because it's all part of the process. I'm Sean Schumacher, and joining me today, a very special guest. She's been a design professional since 2010, working with a client roster that ranges from Energy Star to Nike to Zupan's Markets to the state of Washington and more. She's also perhaps our first guest to possess not one, but 2 Emmy Awards. And these days, she serves as an art director at the Oregon State Parks and Recreation Department. It's Mel Gutierrez. Hi!
Hi, hello.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So I'm curious, like, Mel, did you ever have those, like, scented markers growing up?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
I was big,
they're
some colored nostrils as a result, I'm sure. And that smells are so strong, they come right back to you.
Truly. Oh, the power of like the
grape.
The grape, especially. Yes. The licorice one,
Mm-hmm.
I still think about. Like, it's so wildly powerful, those smells.
Were they called Mr. Sketch?
I think Mr. Sketch was the big maker of those. That just sounds like a dangerous website.
Mr. Sketch,
A
training kids to huff markers from a young age.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Mr. Sketch is a pusher. That's what we really figured out here.
Mr. Sketchy.
Very much so. Well, we can toss Mr. Sketch aside because Crayola is now in the scented marker game. They have launched their own new brand of scented markers. I'm pulling them up on the amazing Amazon website. They're called Silly Scents. They include...
How are they silly because they have eyes on the fruits?
I guess so. These are just horrific looking fruits. Truly just sort of like nightmare wide open eyes.
Yeah.
That pineapple's seen some terrible things.
Goes beyond silly.
Yeah. But what I find fascinating about those is that's like not where I have the concerns, even though we both have the, sort of huffing markers sort of built into the scented marker game. Because Crayola has also taken it one step further. They are just straight up licensing their brand, or in some cases, it seems like making their own food products.
Oh, do not trust.
No, not at all. So I actually collected. I thought I was just going to get a couple of these, and I got a bunch. The first is Crayola Food Paint, which I just immediately sets off alarm bells in my mind.
Yeah, don't call it that.
Don't call it food paint. Don't include two things that should not be together in them. So the description is edible organic Crayola food paint.
Oh, organic. Oh, okay.
Organic. Truly,
I have questions.
No pesticides in this food paint.
Okay.
Is a set of 3 tubes of different colored organic fruit puree that kids can paint on their food when they eat. Goes great on pancakes, waffles, oatmeal, ice cream, yogurt, toast, anything. And if it'll actually load the website, I'm going to show you. Oh, you know what? They've taken it down. Wow, Crayola food paint may be too hot for TV.
Yeah. FDA swooped in real fast.
FDA very reasonably having concerns about paint being labeled as edible. There's Color Your Mouth Mystery Licks Candy, also from Crayola. This one, I believe, is still on sale because there it is. Color Your Mouth Mystery Licks lollipops, which do look kind of good.
I mean, they always, the blue one will always color.
That's absolutely true. These are just going to do that no matter what. But to have the Crayola name attached to it really puts it into a different light, I would say. They make the Screamin' Green gummy fruity frogs.
Oh, I see. So the packaging really,
yeah, the packaging is
they're leading with Crayola. It's not like how Mars owns, every vet you go to, and it's a hidden kind of candy company owning larger company. This is Crayola going after
it, and like even the Crayola like wiggly stripe. It's so funny to imagine. And I think the most egregious of all in Crayola's seemingly intense quest now to encourage students to eat crayons, which as far as I can tell is what the purpose of all this is. You know what? They've taken it off. Crayola and Popsicle Scribblers. Crayola has removed their brand. So I'm guessing as soon as I realized this and started cataloging these, some lawyer at Crayola also did.
Yeah.
And started removing the Crayola partnerships. Never mind. Oh, we got to get... Oh, shit. But
they're
kids
still
are
encouraging you to take a wet popsicle and draw with it as if that's not something toddlers do on their own.
Yeah, like, what is...
Please don't encourage it.
What is this?
It's messy enough as it is.
It seems like a problem. It seems like a mess. I don't know. But yeah, like I guess if there's one thing that I've really learned from doing this, it's that it's good that Crayola has finally gotten their house in order. Because I definitely, before I started cataloging these, I'm a frequent shopper at Wieden+Kennedy. Wieden+Kennedy, the most incredible grocery store experience. It's kind of amazing the versions of this that I saw there, and I wish I'd taken photos of them in the moment because some of them were so strange, and I'm sure they were dumping them in Wieden+Kennedy to be like, oh, we can't let anybody see these. Oh no.
I mean, I thought that candy and toys got really weird in the 90s, but yeah, it only got weirder. There's all sorts of commercials. I don't want to get too far into this, but I saw a turtle that poops, and it's so funny.
Wait, what?
The Gotta Go Turtle.
The Gotta Go Turtle?
Thankfully, I don't know. There's like YouTube pre-roll commercials and stuff, but that one was especially disturbing. I'm like, this seems like out of my childhood.
Oh,
I can't believe they got weirder.
I gotta look up the Gotta Go Turtle right now.
It's ridiculous. You go, oh no, I gotta go. And then you put him on a little toilet.
Wait,
and he poops out sand, kinetic sand, or whatever the kids are playing with.
The turtle is audibly desperate for...
Yes.
Oh, wow. This is so
little
much...
Mitch McConnell purple turtle.
Very Mitch McConnell-y. Oh my God.
Yeah. So that's where toys are going. The Crayola thing does not surprise They're challenging how weird they can get. Just like commercials when the viral thing took off with like Old Spice, I think. It's like that. I'm trying to outdo each other.
Absolutely. And I also want to call out kind of the ad copy on this box for the Gotta Go Turtle. Turtle, it should be noted, is spelled Turdle.
Oh.
Great. Really.
Good copywriting there.
Yeah, pushing the envelope on what words you can use for kids. There's a speech bubble coming out of the turtle that says, feed me. I do a magic poop. I repeat what you say.
Oh, that too.
I'm not sure the second part follows from the first part, but okay.
Yeah.
I guess it's like all of product design. There's just different feature teams, and they're all kind of doing different things.
Yeah,
and,
they're taking that Furby technology and twisting it in all sorts of ways.
The Furby already was such a haunted creature to begin with,
and it's joyful to see the inner workings of them too. When artists will kind of skin the Furbies, and you get to see that. The robotics underneath, how horrifying.
Yeah, I mean, robots. Even though Apple seems convinced that robots are our future, they have such terrifying skeletons, and I'm not sure I want that sort of creature in my life. I'm terrified enough of my own skeleton, thanks. But Mel, I'm sure you didn't come here to talk about robot skeletons.
I did not, but thank you.
You came here to talk about how you got into design, and actually you did a thing that I don't believe any other guest has done. Like you not only like basically came up with like your entire like history in design as a list, like you actually made it into a literal map for us to follow. It's
a visual doodle of sorts. It's I just was finding myself having trouble getting my my thoughts in order in a linear fashion, and am not the most linear storyteller anyway. So I wanted something to look back to of where was I in the timeline. But when I started laying it out, and it's a jumbled mess, but I'm glad that it makes sense to you as well. Probably similar brains there.
I mean, nonlinear is perfect for this show.
Yeah.
That is 100% where we're at. But so like the first item on your sort of pathway into design is youth stuff. And it looks like you were kind of starting in a realm that I was also in, the sort of kid business like environment.
Yeah, a little entrepreneurial spirit for absolutely no reason. I had very former hippie, very liberal parents that never encouraged us to you got to get a job and have a career that makes money. They were very much encouraging of creative pursuits and stuff. So I'm not sure where I, always was turning it into okay, but how do I draw for money? But that ended up being my motivation a lot. And I was trying to think of sort of what's my first graphic design thing I did. And very clearly it was this, I had a little company called Melmark. It was just a biting off Hallmark. I just loved greeting cards, but making my own ones for special holidays and stuff, and would always put my little logo on the back, which, just a little crown that looks like an M. And I wish, I'm sure I'll find one someday in the basement when they clear it out. But yeah, Melmark was always on the back of things. And then at some point, my sister and I, we had this little, on Peanuts with Lucy, the doctor is in therapy, 5 cent thing. So we had this thing that we would do, little plays in, like a theater setup, just a cardboard,
just like thing. A little booth friend. And
I made that my little Melmark business, and any family friends or people that would come by, I'd be sort of shaking them down for assignments, 50 cents, and I'll draw you a card. You need a greeting card for something, any holidays coming up. And I must have been I'm not sure, 5 or 6 or 7, around there, pretty young, and just hustling for those quarters.
Well, you got to pay the rent on that storefront.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
exactly.
prime real estate.
Yeah.
In your parents' house.
That's a brick and mortar setup there. But yeah, that was definitely my first little business. And I had kind of just a lot of free time in a corporate environment too. I was hanging out a lot with my sister in, my dad had an office. He was in merchandising, and we would go there. It would just be a lot of sample, a whole sample room. And there'd be a lot of samples at the house too, but just spending a lot of time with Pantone books, playing with those.
Oh yeah.
Remember being really fascinated with them, and making little games up with the colors and stuff. And lots of just making fun in a very corporate office that didn't have a lot of people. I'm sure they loved the two little girls running around, just
making business cards with loose sheets of paper.
Yeah, and joined the Far Side calendars and stuff.
Oh yes. And
Dilbert too, but I mean not.
Yeah, we've learned better.
Give him any props.
Boy.
Yikes.
One of
what a turn.
So many curdled celebrities of our youth.
Did not expect Dilbert, but
yeah. Wow. And did that ever curdle? But yeah, so you're kind of floating around all these kind of design adjacent things. You literally have Pantone color books in your hand as you're running around. Where does that start to translate into maybe as you're getting into middle school? Are you starting to see places where you can put your art?
I mean, I was definitely on the net, surfing that information superhighway. Asking Jeeves, just to put it in a place and time, ahead of social media for the most part, but still very much on the message boards. I remember making little graphics for that and stuff later. But earlier than that, we were just on Kid Pics a lot, making drawings and blowing them up, which is, similar to Microsoft Word. Lots of that. Or not Microsoft Word, sorry, Microsoft Paint. Lots of Microsoft painting.
If Microsoft would make Word a lot more like Kid Pics, then I think they would be in a much better position in their fight against Google Docs. Yes. Please, Microsoft, add a little bomb icon that you can add to your document that puts black and white sort of radial stripes across it.
You can animate page breaks to be real exciting, I think. But yeah, a lot of time on Kid Pics, and then later around middle school, very much into just making sure that everybody knew what bands I was into.
Oh, yes.
That sort of cringy thing of I'd make little binder covers or keep out of my room things with just any, all of my favorites on there, just mashed in, and got really into Well, or should I say, I was just uncomfortable with white space, real maximalist.
I teach a lot of introductory students. I think that is a very common situation.
Yeah, there's space here, and I'm going to fill it. And it definitely came up a lot in my early, real graphic design studies of just, this is my old style breaking through, and I need to force myself to have a visual break. Like the eyes need to rest, even if my brain won't.
All right, so I'm looking at the roadmap, and you've gotten. Are these actually some of them, or are they examples of like similar types of ones?
Those are actually some of them. I guess I scanned in some like middle school, high school covers of my sketchbooks that had gotten better at that point. In middle school, it was definitely more just squares in Corel Draw. But then, I was doing more physical collages and stuff and scanning it in, and a lot of instant camera stuff, just all the little things that high schoolers think make them special. I was on DeviantArt a lot. I had my own little like GeoCities websites. So learned some coding in those days. And then, MySpace came around and was customizing those quite a bit. But just on the internet quite a bit, and probably more than I should have been. Tons of chat rooms and music downloading that thankfully my parents didn't get in trouble for. It was kind of around the time of when they were cracking down on Napster, and I heard about parents getting cease and desist letters, but thankfully that didn't happen.
Yeah, that was I think there are definitely some students that like would be surprised that was a thing that you used to really be worried about.
Yeah.
Like you could go on Napster and you could download stuff, but you never knew if the MPAA was like going to send you. I think in some cases it was not even a cease and desist. It was like an actual like lawsuit.
They made it sound scary. Yeah. But it was from the time you wouldn't steal a DVD. You wouldn't steal a car. The anti-piracy.
Yeah.
But now there's a movement for bringing it back, just with all the streaming services and stuff.
Truly. I think if musicians got 3 cents per song, they'd
make
be
a
very
lot
happy.
more.
It would be 20 times what Spotify pays.
And I would
for
gladly
listen.
pay 3 cents a song if I, owned it at that point.
Yeah. Oh, they don't want.
No,
you're not allowed to do
string.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense.
No, ownership. Ugh, who needs it? We'll just rent our media and then buy it over and over again each and every time we develop a new system. The Nintendo model, I think they call that.
Yeah.
Truly horrific. But like at the same time, you're kind of starting to realize that graphic design is like a career path. It sounds like too.
Yeah. I was middle school, early high school, I was very kind of apathetic. Mall goth, not wanting to, not caring about my future too much.
You were on DeviantArt. So
I was on DeviantArt.
That's going to add to that,
yes.
for sure.
Yeah, I was taking that to heart and just not caring too much about anything to a certain point. And I remember like freshman year of high school, I went to I'm from Tacoma, Washington, so it's the one from 10 Things I Hate About You Stadium High School.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't realize they filmed that up there.
Yeah. So we would go around the hallway, like, Heath stood here. Oh, This is before he died. We just had a crush on him, I guess.
Yeah, but that's a very powerful teen movie to have in your high school.
Yeah. It was such a beautiful space, but huge and not good for me. And my mom had to like call to get me into an art class there because it was filled up by, people who like seniors and juniors who had to get a credit. So like she had to call him, and thank goodness she did. She was like, oh, I don't think she'll even stay in school if you don't, let her in an art. Like she really
going hard.
Hit him with the please foster my creative child. And thankfully, I got in there and had a great, experience. Teacher's pet, kind of got to do a lot of extra stuff with the art teacher, just hanging out there. But sophomore year, there's a public art high school in Tacoma called Tacoma School of the Arts. And they were pretty new at that time, kind of experimental and very much, I always described it like Fame, but I never actually saw Fame. But it would be like, instead of PE, you get to do modern dance. And instead of real science class, we were like drawing muscle groups and memorizing them. So
I thought you were going to say instead of real science class, we just watched the movie Real Science over and over again.
We watched Spaceballs one time. I'm not sure why. In science class. Couldn't tell you.
Continuing our season 4 theme of movies shown in schools that should not have been shown in schools.
My gosh.
Wow.
I was there for the visual arts.
Hard to find the educational merit there. Wow. So you're getting into Tacoma School for the Arts. Like you're actually in an art environment now.
Yes. Yeah. And it was just 100%. It was very like open and great for kids who can kind of be responsible on their own with independence and stuff. And then, because they'd give you, it was spread out in different buildings around downtown, and you had a bus pass, an hour break for lunch, and like half an hour between classes.
Wow.
So that's a lot of freedom that a lot of kids did not do well with. And I think they're more structured now, but I was in its sort of infancy going there. And thankfully, kind of got my sea legs, got more into school. And especially after, I think my senior year, I took a graphic design class. They had one there. And that really kind of changed my trajectory. Because before then, I didn't want to go to college. And I thought, oh, maybe I could be a tattoo artist or something. Like, what's something where I can draw for money is basically what's the easiest thing, too. Because I didn't want to, I wanted people to come to me for I didn't want to hustle too much.
You didn't want to have to set up your booth from childhood again.
Yes, exactly. I had lost that entrepreneurial hustle a little bit.
Burnout is real, even for children.
Even for children, yes. So I was in the graphic design class, and that, I think, helped me get more into school in general, because I already had that baseline. Since we had computers at the house, I was lucky enough to, grow up with the kid pics, but also like a very early version of Photoshop and stuff, just from my dad being in that kind of, what do you call it? Merchandising, swag area. He doesn't like it when I call him a swag man, but that's what it was. I grew up around so many, free samples and logos, and seeing, people's advertisements just really small on things. And I was very into the typesetting of it, and just, I don't know, I felt like that helped set me up. But going back to high school, I already knew how to use a lot of those programs, and that helped me. If I'm bad at something, it's really hard to keep pushing myself to get better at it, even though that's how you get better at things. I needed to kind of automatically be thriving at it for me to feel motivated. And thankfully, with graphic design, I was.
Yeah, I mean, that is incredibly lucky, too, because I feel like, there are so many folks who come into design and they feel that of like, maybe I've been drawing my whole life and I feel it's like really natural to draw. And then I open up Illustrator for the first time and I have to use the pen tool, and I'm just like,
yeah,
I don't know how to draw at all. And like, you start to see folks like kind of drift off after that, or like they'll come into design for drawing and have to set type for maybe the first time.
It's such a hurdle for people, when they don't have that sort of base. And, kids today, I'm sure, are growing up with computers, and it's really not a thing. But in the 90s, to have, Mac Classic, and then all of the Windows 95 stuff that we had, and it was just one computer, so fighting over the phone line internet situation at the same time, but that allowed us to work offline on things like
those AOL dial-up charges really piling up by the minute. They charged us by the minute.
Oh my god.
But like, I mean, that's a incredible situation to be stepping into. Like you're going into this graphic design class and you're actually feeling like you kind of have some structure and like can kind of maybe see a future from it.
I even got to do a little internship at that school. They had a thing called J-term, January term, where for senior year, you would go and do an internship somewhere. So like my friend worked at, a bronze sculpture studio, and I got to work at a little small agency in town called Rusty George. And it was just for that month. I wish I could be a fly on the wall and see me now, knowing how agencies work and stuff. Just like, I can't believe they had me in there. But yeah, all of January, I got to be in that environment too, and really felt energized and like, this is a fun office. This is a fun place to work. Like, it's not, super corporate, and it felt like I was going in the right direction. So around, halfway through senior year, I decided like, okay, I'm going to go try out graphic design at college. If I don't like it, I can always drop out. And it's worth a shot. And I knew myself as somebody that wouldn't, like, if I took a year off or didn't go straight to college from high school, that I could have just stayed in, I could have just kept working at Papa Murphy's and they'd made me a manager there. Like I really didn't want to get stuck.
Or you could have gone into like tattooing. Like, I feel like there are...
I'm glad I didn't. My husband's a tattooer. That's why I say.
So you actually know.
I know the inner workings. No, but I remember when I was looking at Portland and I was like, oh, let me look at the tattoo shops around there. And I would see a few that were former graphic designers that had dropped out or stopped doing it. So I think it was a lot of, same motivation I had of like, I want to draw for a living. How do I do that? And, graphic design doesn't necessarily involve drawing. That's just something that I got to do a lot. I know there's a lot of graphic designers out there who are upset whenever they're tasked with it. Because they're like, why does everybody assume I can draw? That's not what I'm here for.
Yeah, don't ask me to draw anybody. You're going to be real sad with the outcome.
They have other specialties like photography or web or, everybody's got their little special flavor that they have. Mine was drawing.
Yeah, so you're starting on your college journey. Where do you go to college ultimately?
I ended up going to Pacific Northwest College of Art, PNCA.
PNCA, our neighbors to the north of where we are currently.
Yep. I told
a normal way of saying that, of course.
I told myself, I'll apply there. If I don't get in, then I'll go to, Seattle Community College had a really good graphic design program I had heard of. But I wanted to move far enough away that I wouldn't have to live at the house. Again, just that need for independence for no reason. My parents are so amazing and lovely, but I just truly wanted to be out on my own and independent. Yeah. So Portland was a perfect distance away. I spent a lot of time here. My mom is originally from Oregon, so I've got aunts and uncles scattered around, and it just felt like a very safe small city to go to.
Yeah, so but you're in now. You're in art school.
Yeah, moved to Portland, and that foundation year that they had, it's no graphic design classes at all. It's a fine art school that they wanted to make sure everybody had that foundation. I guess that's why they call it that. A lot of contemporary art learning and stuff that I really enjoyed because I had been going to art high school and, graphic design. Originally, I was getting into it just because I like to do art and I like to get paid to do art. So that was sort of my motivation there. So I was just thriving, enjoying learning about art and, making friends with more the freaks of the school. Once I got into the design program,
watch out.
I got into the design program and it was so small and closed off in a separate building and stuff. So it was nice to have that.
Did you have any sort of portfolio review or anything like that?
Oh, I had a portfolio review too soon. That's definitely a mistake I wanted to talk about as far as a squandered opportunity that still haunts me to this day, I guess. This must have been end of sophomore or early junior year. So kind of pretty early on, not too many projects under our belts. No discussion of portfolio at that point at all. But one of our professors had an invite from John Jay, who, big name for Wieden+Kennedy.
Legendary.
Worldwide. Yeah, huge. And he let us know that, this is a big deal. He said I could send over, a couple of students for individual portfolio reviews. And he wanted me to go for that.
Whoa.
And I felt honored, so honored to be asked. But I'm really bad about asking further questions of portfolio review, it seems self-explanatory. So I just don't know why my brain at the time was going off into he's going to love my work and offer me a job. And this is, an interview and stuff. I truly didn't understand how it was going to work. And I didn't have a portfolio. So I, spent the next couple of days just working late in that studio, making one and putting a print one together.
You had nothing.
I had nothing. To invite us to a portfolio, tell me how to make a portfolio. But I remember,
the great British Bake Off, but people who've never ever seen a baked good before in their life.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually, if somebody wants to do that, pay me money, but also do it.
I'd watch it.
I would absolutely watch it. That would be incredible.
But yeah, I remember just pouring all of my effort into making my work look good on the page and not into what am I going to say about the work.
Oh, no.
I have things to like. I pictured that he would be interviewing me or asking me questions that I could respond to, I guess. I don't know what I thought, but basically I got there and of course, you wanted me to walk through the book and talk about the projects, talk about the thought process behind something, the, general brief, what was the assignment. But I had not prepared any thoughts in that regard.
Ooh.
So I went through it real fast because that's another thing, you're nervous and you just go through something too fast.
Yeah.
So I was just going page by page, ran out of pages real fast and felt awkward about it because he didn't have too much to say because I was not offering him much to talk about. And I remember at the end getting that classic, "Oh, you have any questions for me?"
Ooh.
Mistake number 2. Oh, like if I'm treating this like an interview, now I know. And any students who don't know, like that's always a question at the end of an interview. And you better have a question for them, maybe a couple. It's a chance to let them know a little more about yourself.
It's like the most important question, basically.
Yes, yeah.
Do you care?
Do you care enough to have some curiosity about us?
Exactly.
Yeah. And I have, curiosity is a muscle, I think, that you have to kind of work and practice and stuff.
Yeah.
If you don't naturally have it. And bless those who can say confidently, like, I'm a naturally curious person. I'm always asking questions and stuff. I wish I was that. And unfortunately, no, the apathetic Mel comes out in certain ways there.
You studied with Rusty George, not Curious George, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Although you should probably get a tetanus shot in either case.
Yes.
Curious George is up to no good.
Oh my goodness. No, the man in the yellow hat has to answer for leaving him alone all the time.
This came up in class and
Agent of Chaos.
I don't think I could explain the context and how it came up. What is the man with the yellow hat's job? What does he do?
Gonna be right back and rescue him. Yeah. I've been reading a lot of Curious George.
He has a very tall yellow hat. That's not anything. He's all in yellow. That's not anything either. What is he doing?
Is it a Panama hat?
I guess.
What do people who wear Panama hats do?
I mean, it seems like he's maybe a zookeeper, but I don't think they let you take the monkey home and live in your house.
And if he's a zookeeper, he should know. He shouldn't leave that curious monkey all by himself.
No.
He's gonna get into trouble.
Ample evidence that doesn't go well. Yeah.
But yeah, that wasted John Jay opportunity. Not having questions at the end was another huge mistake of it. And I very much regret it. And he was a frequent, I was working in coffee at Pete's Coffee throughout my entire time at college. And he was a frequent person that would come through the line, get an Americano. And I remember after that happened, like, hoping that he would recognize me from the bad conversation that we had and talk, like I had chances afterwards to be like, hey, I do have a question, or hey, tell me more about that,
Or even just, it was a pleasure to meet you the other day.
Yeah, some sort of, but no, I chickened out every time. It was so silly.
Oh,
yeah.
That's painful though, because then you got to relive that all the time.
Yeah. Now I'm glad I've put it into podcast history. I don't think a lot of people know about that at all. That wasted opportunity.
Well, I mean, if it makes you feel better, I'm fairly certain John Jay does not listen to this podcast.
Oh, yeah.
But if he does, hey, John, hit me up.
Hi, John.
I'll have you on, absolutely.
Yeah. So I got in that coffee job that I had through college. It's also where I got really into chalkboards and these large signs. They got these 2 giant, large slate chalkboards and did not have plans for who would put anything on them. And the store manager was just like, "Oh, you're in art school. You go."
And these are huge
Flank steak
signboards.
Special on there. Huge, beautiful, nice slate signboards. They spent way too much money on, I'm sure. And I just was so bad at them at first. And I'm glad that I have on that Flickr. Like if you scroll back to the earlier ones, they were really bad and they took me a really long time. I remember them getting annoyed because it was a $10 an hour coffee job. Like they really should have been fine with me staying late and working extra on it. But yeah, I remember them being like, come on, chop, chop. And it was like twice a week on two, taller than me for sure, taller than me with my like arm fully raised chalkboards for, I think 3 years is kind of like where I really got my stride with it and became, just really quick and have this like arsenal of, lettering styles. And that was around the time that I was also doing my thesis. So I just being so into hand lettering and typography and everything, I really went all into signs. And I was making signs at the library too. I make a lot of signs now in my new job. It's a frequent occurrence with me, I guess. I love telling people where to go and the rules. I don't know. Really makes me sound fun.
It's an important job, though.
Yeah. I mean, people don't read signs, and that's something I hear all the time. But I do.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I love a sign.
But yeah, so like does that like work with the coffee shop kind of doing signs, kind of take you into another sign painting job after that?
So I kept doing that. And then even when I graduated from PNCA, I kept on the payroll over at Zupan's. I stopped doing barista stuff. But at that point, I remember telling the marketing director, like, hey, I do others. I use a computer, too, by the way.
Not just analog.
If you ever need design thing, I was very shy, but just like hey, by the way. And she was really into that. She's like, oh, I do have a freelance project. Like, I have freelance needs. There was no designer there, and they had 4 stores at the time. She had some projects for me. And so I kept doing freelance there while also doing the chalkboards on the payroll, but I, did a sort of separate, charging them, having my little early freelancing biz there. And then a lot of chalkboards for outside clients. I think it helped that I was kind of just out in front of the store hours at a time. And then, people would come in. This is, for anybody who doesn't know, Zupan's is very expensive, bougie.
Luxury groceries.
Luxury groceries.
The most opposite Winco that you can possibly get.
Mm-hmm. And before not natural grocers, what's the New Seasons? Before New Seasons really exploded and overpriced groceries became more normal.
There's no normal price groceries.
Yes, yeah.
You want pasta sauce from Safeway now? That'll be $4, please.
Yes.
Ugh.
Safeway Select.
Safeway Select. Thank you for selecting this very expensive pasta sauce for me, Safeway, and giving me no other options. Helpful. Helpful.
But it was a very bougie store and environment and clientele. But I think that also helped that, I was in front of the store drawing, and I got a lot of freelance projects through this one event person like that does events for Nike and stuff. So I think I got on their radar for a chalkboard project through that. Or there's just a lot of lettering projects came my way around the time that I had graduated PNCA and was doing those chalkboards, doing I got to do some lettering for like the 2013 Design Week PDX post. Speaking of things that haunt me.
Yeah, you have in this roadmap a poster that I believe was hanging in one of our classrooms until very recently.
Oh my God.
The 2013, the kickoff Design Week poster.
Yes.
Design is fun as fuck.
Yes.
Minus the C.
It was a very edgy statement at the time. It was before people were saying AF. We could have shortened it. But that...
If only we had that technology at the time.
Yeah. And that project, I guess that one haunts me because I remember being kind of at the cusp of getting better at lettering at that point. I look at all my old stuff and I cringe for different reasons, just that swash is too tight over here, or whatever, that R is backwards.
I mean, there's no eye that's more critical than the eye of the maker.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I'm, even with that in mind, though, I remember not liking it at the time and just regretting not putting a few sketches out there. I don't know how that happened, if it was like just a quick turn and I put a sketch out there. But anyway, if I were to art direct myself now, there's no sort of meaning behind that design. It's really like there's no design elements to it, no references to what makes design fun as fuck. And then the lettering itself, I just didn't like. So I thought it was going to be one of like a lot of people doing posters, but it turned out that this poster was the design all over town.
Yeah.
Beautifully, just, the street team and the folks behind Design Week PDX, like so amazing. And what a cool thing that they did. And, I think there's rumblings of it coming back as a month and being through AIGA. But anyway,
yes,
go to your events, folks. It's very fun. I plan to take part in it more than I used to at the time. But yeah, getting to do that poster, I wish that I had done better at it, knowing that if I had known it was going to be everywhere. And I went to the opening party and they were screen printing it on T-shirts.
Oh, really?
I was like, oh God, this design that like I want to be so proud of it because of the amount of it being everywhere. And I just,
oh,
feel
that's
embarrassed about it.
Yeah, that's got to be really hard to be feeling that in the moment too. And then it's just inescapable.
I mean, I tried to be, cool about it because it's still really a nice opportunity, but I didn't get any new jobs from that. I don't think it helped get me more work.
Well, I mean, I will say I always liked the poster. I mean, that's partly why I was happy to have it up in that room for so long. Because, like it's a cool looking poster.
Yeah, it was brought up recently that the little clip I have is just a former design student when I was a tech at PNCA after I graduated. That was another one of the jobs that I had in this. I marked this as the hustle period in my map. Just had a lot of jobs, but I was the design department tech. After I left working at the craft college, they had opened up that role. The design tech before me, Daniel Hicks, was very popular. And I remember all the design kids just throughout my time there. He had been there, I don't know how long he was at PNCA as the tech, but a good enough time that he was beloved. And I felt very happy to be going and filling his shoes as, one of the people who beloved him, I guess. Just something about being a design tech and then having, the students a year under you, getting to know them and having them kind of like, feel a rapport with you. I really loved that time. But that design is fun as fuck poster got posted on one of their stories. Like, oh, I spotted one of Mel's in the wild and stuff. I'm like, oh, I hated it. Now's my time.
So now it's associated with you more directly.
Yeah.
More Googleably. Googleably.
No, it's an Instagram story, so it disappears.
Yeah, Instagram now only shows you 25 stories under each hashtag. There's going to be no historical record of Instagram. They've tried very hard to obliterate it. Obliterate. It's not like talking is my job, so that's good. I'm also seeing in your kind of chalkboard period, you've got one of your chalkboards, a really lovely looking chalkboard.
Yes, yeah. No, I liked the design of this one. This one was more a mistake of just don't get too comfortable when you work really large and stuff and you get comfortable, you assume things like, whether Rachael is spelled with an A or an E,
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So this was a giant wedding chalkboard that I was doing. I was doing getting some good money from freelancing for this event person that I met through the Zupans job. And this wedding chalkboard was, Rachael and Corey, really big. And I think, apologies to all the Rachels with an A out there, but if you know somebody that spells it with an E, you just lean where you're more comfortable. And unfortunately, that was not a good move on my part. So I got this panicked call from the people setting up the event space. Like, you spelled the bride's name wrong. Oh. And thankfully, my boss at Zupans was very chill. At this point, I went from freelanced for them for a long time, and after the hustle period, I had been like, hey, you need an in-house person, right? I need health insurance. Let's do this thing. So I was working in-house corporate office for them, which was in Vancouver at the time. And she let me, leave the office in Vancouver and go down to the Pearl District and fix this chalkboard right before the event was supposed to start, get a wet rag and really get in there. And
that must have been hard because I'm looking at...
It was tight.
It's very tight.
I'm trying to think of how I fixed it.
Like that's definitely the most detailed part of the whole piece too.
Yeah, definitely spent some time on those big circusy letters. I never got to see pictures of it up in the space. But
well, I mean,
yeah. And I'm wondering, did I get to work for that event person much longer after that? I also put bondless here earlier before I was doing so many freelance boards, but doing sort of if you look under the hashtag on Instagram, Wednesday Chalk Day, that's sort of when I was posting my little weekly chalkboards and putting them under that hashtag. It got taken over by like somebody at Trader Joe's starting to do it or other stores. But for the longest time, it was just me on there. And I remember posting it as I was walking from the Zupans chalkboard weekly job to the design tech job over at PNCA. And, you know, during that walk, I would usually do my little post. And then, yeah, as soon as I sat down at the PNCA job, somebody commented, boneless? Because you write the same things above it on all, you know, boneless, organic, blah, 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 you know, all these sort of keywords. And I got too comfortable and I wrote boneless. I forgot the E. It's just when you're working really big and you think you know words and you drop off something like, but thankfully for that one, I didn't have to run back to work because my husband was working in coffee that's where we met at Pete's Coffee.
Oh,
in the Zupans. He was working there still as a barista, and I just called him and was like, hey, can you go out with a rag and just erase the top there? So we just lost that qualifying word for the week. It was fine. He saved me there.
I mean, I'm sure that the regular Zupans customers are kind of just assuming that everything's boneless.
Yeah.
Just as simple and luxurious as possible. Yeah. So, like, you are starting in-house at Zupans.
Yeah. And that turned, I mean, I think a lot of people thought that all I did for them was the chalkboards, but it was a full-on, like, Jane of all trades, learning everything as I went. But they were so cool. You know, it paid criminally low, but at the same time, it was the trade was so much creative freedom. And, you know, I had to do some boring stuff like sales sheets or whatever, but I got to do like food styling and photography, and that was really fun, and get to eat it afterward.
Oh, yeah, even better.
Yeah, I was not super into like food and cooking until I started working in that job and really appreciating like just now it's my favorite subject matter. And I still do a lot of cooking. Just, you know, I don't know if I would have gone into it unless I had that job, but glad I did. There was a lot of, you know, running their social. They didn't have Instagram at the time, and I just sort of started at and got to write a lot of captions and work on my quick form.
I mean, it sounds like you're basically a one-person marketing department.
Truly. Well, there was the marketing director, yeah, but then she, you know, had a freelancer that she kind of worked with that did writing, and then that woman would run the Facebook. But I remember the marketing director being like a little tired of the wine mom memes that would be sort of what would show up as like the main content. So, you know, somebody that worked in the store that knew the people there was great for her, because then I was comfortable like walking around from department to department and talking to the, you know, heads of different stores, like, what do you need? And measuring things, and just really kind of, you know, I got to work on the uniforms and the delivery van wraps and
I'm seeing beer labels.
Yeah, I got to do a couple beer, like all these sort of dream jobs that, you know, would have been really cool for freelance, but because I was in-house, I get the first dibs at it.
Yeah.
And yeah, they did some beer collaborations that I got to do the labels for.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, making like digital email blasts was not fun, but also good learning experience, and going through a web redesign that they finally did start hiring like a real agency to help them with that. I think Murmur Creative might still do work with them. But yeah, right at the time that I was leaving, we were working on a web redesign with them. And so I think that worked out well, that, you know, she got to see, oh, look at this full, you know, team of, I can hire a creative agency instead of, yeah. But I loved that job. I learned so much there, and would have stayed forever had it, you know, paid a good amount. But I also was like my portfolio was looking real stagnant. Strawberries are on season every year. Like, how many ways can I spin that? Or
it's hard to get into much depth too when you're trying to do everything. And I can definitely say that from experience. Like, it's when you're just like juggling between so many different things, like you don't get that chance to iterate like you were with the signs. Say. So yeah, like where does that kind of take you from there?
Yeah. So I mean, around that time I had a lot of freelance coming in, but I was taking stock that like, oh, none of it seems to be design freelance anymore. Like, for a little bit after I graduated, I was getting some, projects that involved like print ads and stuff. But near the end of my time at Zupans, I was getting lettering jobs that were really cool. And I'd have, like somebody from RGA reach out about, a Nike basketball commercial. Like, I got to do, that was really cool. A chalkboard for that. Or like Sockeye, I got to work with them, and I had a huge crush on that agency and wanted to work there. But they were hiring me to do some lettering and drawing for Pastini mural. And got to do like a Portland Monthly cover, but it was just, art directors telling me sort of exactly what they want it to look like, and then me doing it. And it made me want to be the art director.
Yeah.
Like, wait, I want to be on your side of things, telling somebody else what to make it look like. And I, at that point, was applying to things and finding that I wasn't hearing back much at all. I think a huge part of it was my portfolio was really reading as like illustration. I had so much illustration injected into the work that I was putting out there, because that felt like it had me in it. It felt like I had more stake behind it and more design decisions behind it. But I wasn't putting my boring sales sheets up, but then nobody knows that I can lay out some clean, good type at that point.
Yeah, well, and I think this is a challenge that I talk about with students all the time. Like, you don't want to put things in your portfolio that you wouldn't necessarily want to do, but you also like it can't just be purely like what you like to do.
Yeah.
Because then, the person who's trying to hire you may not be able to see like the kind of work that you're doing fit in with what they need.
Yeah. And it was such a, Zupans was great for building up my portfolio in general and getting to make creative decisions and having that experience. I felt lucky at the time that I graduated, because I think a lot of entry-level jobs for designers were more like, okay, you're going to work on this PowerPoint deck for, I keep saying the same big shoe company. We've got several big shoe companies here that you could get a deck designing job at. But basically,
but if you are applying to a job on Indeed, it will be listed as big shoe company.
Big shoe company.
Based in Beaverton, Oregon.
Yes. And I was on Indeed. And that's where I found an agency job that finally an agency took me in, because I was applying to things that, I didn't want to go to a junior level, entry level position and then all of a sudden be working on, PowerPoint decks kind of, and that's it, and not get to express myself in any kind of way. I was worried that I would end up in that situation after having so much experience built up after, 5 or 6 years in the grocery game. So I was wanting to do not necessarily a senior designer job, but just not super entry level. And that put me in a tough position, because agencies want agency experience, which, once I was on the agency side hiring, I am guilty of that too. Like, I wanted somebody to have agency experience, because it is a different beast. I thought it would be easy, because I was doing so much over at Zupans and had a lot of responsibilities, and felt like surely an agency job would be easier because I'm only doing one portion of it.
Yeah.
I was so wrong. Wrong. Not easier.
Yeah, it's just a different thing.
Yeah. But I in the interview for this place, C+C is where I ended up. And in the interview, I think I was phrasing it as like, well, the different department heads, they're a lot like different clients, as far as not kind of caring what's up with the other clients. Like, they want what they want now. And there was just a lot of similarities, I think, as far as client service went. And they really liked my portfolio. And I got that job as a senior designer.
Hey!
Yeah. And they had a smaller Portland office. They're based mostly in Washington and had a Portland and Boston office. And they had started as a PR company and have really, built up that muscle within a smaller marketing department arm, mostly out of Seattle. So I was the first Portland creative team person hired on.
At what point do you kind of start to climb the ladder there?
Yeah. So with not having, anybody above senior designer level, it was sort of a very slow kind of move to art, or it felt slow move to art direction. Me and the other senior designer at the time, I remember us both being like, okay, but nobody's art direct, like we are still art directing. Can we be called art directing? And she was doing most of the poking about that because she had been there longer. Shout out Rachael Quast. Thank you for your advocacy for us moving up to art direction. Around that time is sort of, 2020, right after getting to jump up to art director, the pandemic hit, and at a time where, could have easily lost my job, C+C was thriving because they won a proposal to do all of the COVID communications for Washington State.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a good contract.
That's it.
Holy hell.
Our first, $1 million thing at all. It truly, we were very scrappy and small at the time. And then we were able to bulk up quickly and, kind of become this sort of well-oiled machine that, it's not just marketing, but like a lot of research and there's a whole market intelligence wing to it. So we got to do very research-informed things. Lots of public health workers were working with us. That whole time was nuts. But we got that contract and then had to kind of keep up with the science of it. So, at first it was very much like, stay home, stay safe, don't go anywhere. And then, wanting to move along with the science as far as like when masks became a thing. Anyway, anytime the governor came out and said something, we had to scramble to put out, we couldn't do live filming for the first chunk of that.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That was the true lockdown period.
Truly, yeah. So early, like March, April. I think April is when it was really, hitting as like we're, have to through the weekend just bust this out. Over and over again, though, the changing science and kind of keeping up with that. It was hard, but rewarding because, a lot of times you're working like a 50-hour week or something and it sucks because you're like, well, I'm not saving lives here. I'm selling leggings or whatever,
I mean, this time you're literally saving
lives. But this time we got to feel really, really good about it. And it was motivating. I mean, I went to that agency, just really wanting an agency job, but also having activism be part of my job felt really good. Like it's so hard to do stuff outside of your work when you're the type that makes work your life. And so getting to just double up those things was really good for me. At Zupan's when there was the 2016 election and I came in the next day to that corporate office feeling like, oh, nobody else here cried their eyes out last night.
Oh, really?
It was just a more conservative environment that wouldn't have been affected by it. But anyway, I felt very with my people, just knowing how, politically where everybody stood there and stuff too. And not that, you should work in a bubble, but we did research for how to reach people outside of the bubble, and make sure they were knew about vaccines not being full of microchips too.
Yeah, God.
It was a I'm glad I didn't have to monitor the social media aspect of it. That was somebody else's job.
Ugh, yikes. Yeah. I hope that person's okay now. Wow.
But it was so when we couldn't film stuff, that was my time to shine as far as like, well, okay, I can illustrate, we can draw things, we can do, of course there was a lot of like quick turn kinetic type stuff too. And that was something that I always struggled with at, working at a smaller agency that had a very sort of intense pace and, you don't get to focus on one client. Like, even though I was working for the Department of Health, all the other clients are still my client too.
Yeah.
And, that work slowed down for a little bit while we were doing the COVID stuff, but there was still, we still had to hold down the fort on a lot of other projects.
And you're still facing the same problems with those other projects of you can't film things and everything changes moment to moment.
So this is my time to just get to do real scrappy things. But the struggle of it could be so much better if I, had more time or had more help or, a lot of times, like, I often don't want to call myself an illustrator because I know so many better illustrators out there just going through art high school and then college. Like, it's hard to own that. And I think I really wanted to work with my illustrating friends and stuff, but I could never put them through that agency pace. I'm like, I don't want to put them through this quick turn.
Yeah.
Like, just, it would be a lot of projects would, not the COVID stuff, but then later on, quick turn things would just creatively be hard to get over, like the potential that it could have been. Like, I had a Times Square billboard that will never be on my portfolio.
Oh, no.
Because it was just so,
It just needed to happen. And sometimes...
needed to happen. Yeah. Got added to the list at the end.
Yeah.
So was made not with it being that size in mind and stuff. Yeah.
Ooh.
Well, all kinds of things with that. But, but yeah, the COVID stuff, though, I mean, so at the beginning of the pandemic, I also was pregnant.
I was going to say, your life's changing in many ways.
Yes, yeah.
Time is becoming a big issue, I would imagine.
Yeah, at the time where everybody's like, well, when we're back to normal, and I'm like, my life is never going to be the same. There's no back to normal for me. And, before, I think I got a lot of education and a lot of growth at C+C because I was also able to like work later nights and, really pour myself in to the work pre-baby. That was my free time to give, and I would just give it back into work because I wanted to make really cool stuff and was enjoying it. But also because of timelines.
Yeah.
A lot of people not in that industry were like, oh, they're working you to the bone. And I'm like, no, I'm choosing to do a lot of this work too. I'm choosing to take a little longer on something. But after that, I just didn't have more free time to give. So I found myself continually like burning out, before I could take breaks with my free time. Like, if I have 2 50-hour weeks in a row and things are going bad, like I know that I can schedule in some time off. And that just wasn't the case anymore because, with a kid, you're really... At first, though, in the height of the pandemic, I mean, I came back from maternity... I left for maternity leave, and then when I came back, vaccines were here, and then I got to do that sort of like first push for that. And newborns, they don't require too... I was able to... We're all on Zoom. Like, if I had to take the MAX train to downtown 5 days a week still... I wouldn't have done it. But the amount of silver linings that I had from the pandemic and the way that it changed the way that we all work seemingly forever, it really worked to my benefit as, a mom that was trying to still do was faced with a lot of really cool creative opportunities that I didn't want to give up. There would be times where I was like, oh, no, I want to do freelance. I want to leave and go, maybe I'll just do something else. There was a time where the market seemed really great and I could do that. And I still was like, I won't get the same opportunities. And so it became really hard to sort of wrestle with the fact that like, oh, I'm giving my entire self to, I can't half-ass either job of motherhood and or creative direction at that point. Like right at the end, I got up to associate creative director because I was doing a lot of writing and stuff too. That first vaccine ad back ended up being one of the concepts I wrote.
Wow.
And that it felt so good to like those last couple of years there to be able to just, I don't know, just own it creatively as far as like, oh, this is my concept and I got to write it. And then I got to draw for it too, or I got to do a lot of the vaccine work that was around parents and children and getting your children vaccinated and stuff. So, subject matter expert, also waiting for the vaccine. One of the favorite things I worked on.
Yeah, you really know what the audience wants in that case.
Yes, exactly. And so, I got to work and be my own audience as far as, like, I think one that I'm most proud of, I got to do all the drawing for and write, and it was about, how parenting in a pandemic is hard is like the first line of it. And it just sort of leads with empathy for how hard that was for the parents that, had kids in school that were staying home. I didn't have it that hard at all. But the people with older kids, holy moly.
oh, yeah. Ooh.
Yeah. And then I got to do a bunch of, kids go to the doctor and then they get their little stickers. I got to do a bunch of illustrated stickers, like, got my vaccine. And I found just really, I love all the work that I got to do during that time, even though, I could pick it apart and be like, if I had more time on it, it would have been better. But
we could say that about any aspect of, especially the early days.
Yeah. So I just have to let those things go and be proud of it. And I really enjoyed it. I definitely thought at a certain point, like, oh, my portfolio is now, it went from all food to all vaccine stuff.
But I think
there's some more in there.
It does also make sense because, your next step after this is to go for, Oregon Parks and Recreation. Mm-hmm. And so, like, public service into public service, basically.
Yes, yeah. It came about in kind of a funny way because they work with Jolby.
Yes. Yeah.
And other agencies in town, but specifically them. And I remember Jolby had posted on their social media a really cool brand library that they got to do with Oregon Parks and Rec. And I had done a brand library for all the COVID communication, like a third wave of, how do we keep up with the changing needs and stuff. So I was like, oh, we need an illustrated brand library. And that was a huge final project of mine over at C+C. But so I'm passionate about the effectiveness of having one of those for, quick turn, consistent branding pieces. And I went on LinkedIn to go immediately follow, I wasn't even thinking about Parks and Rec. Let me go follow them. I was on LinkedIn a lot at that point. I'm so glad to be off there right now. I found myself.
It's everyone's favorite social network.
I found my thumb going there automatically, like the way that, our rat brains do with Instagram and stuff. But I found myself going to LinkedIn automatic. I'm like, no, what is going on? I've damaged myself.
That's how they get you with that gold membership.
Oh, God.
Watch out.
Yeah. Thank God I'm out of there. I had a LinkedIn for a little bit, but I saw on there when I went to go follow them, a former professor of mine from PNCA has worked there for 3 years. And I had no idea. Or maybe it was even 4 years. It was 4 years he had been working there. And shout out Jason Risch. I reached out to him and I was like, hey, I had no idea you were working at Parks and Rec. Let me know if anything ever opens up. I told him just a little bit of I saw what Jolby posted and, kind of just a quick, concise little keep me in mind. And he was like, oh, stay tuned. I think we're going to have, some stuff opening up soon. And it still was maybe 6-8 months later that job finally got posted because things run different in government.
Yeah. Can confirm.
Yeah. So but I was, patient and applying to other things in the meantime here and there, but then also just, enjoying my job and loving the people I worked with over at C+C. It was so hard to leave, but I felt like I had to leave for a cool job. And then when I got that Parks and Rec job after very long interview process and stuff, that felt like, okay, nobody's going to be mad at me for leaving to go art direct for the parks.
Everyone is going to understand that. I mean, that's such a cool opportunity. Mm-hmm.
It definitely. I mean, I'm going to be proud of that job title. And it's probably more, as far as what's a creatively more exciting and fulfilling job full of wins and such. Of course, that's the agency variety. But I had that time. And I was ready to move on to something that felt like, one client, one purpose, not, I don't have to learn about carbon sequestration or whatever was the last thing that I at C+C, some quick turn thing where I had to learn all about how carbon sequestration for tree logging and stuff worked and make an infographic about it. And want one client for a little bit. And for it to be Parks and Rec was so special. And I'm in my 6-month trial period, so I won't say too much more.
But like, I mean, it's in a way like it's the perfect place to be because, you know, if even other, you know, people who would be in equivalent jobs in other states, there are few things about Oregon that are better than our parks.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, just such a incredible diverse variety of like places that you can be. And like, you're in the organization that is like preserving them and trying to get people into them. Like, it's incredible. It
feels special to, not just any department, but the coolest department of the state with the coolest parks.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, like, I think that's a great place to be. Mel, if people want to like find more of your work, where can they go to do that?
Oh, well, my website's not the most updated, but it's Malara's. It sounds like malaria. It's just portmanteau of first and last name there.
Don't go to any websites that say malaria.
Yeah. Mel ERREZ .com would be where you could find some of this stuff. I mean, I'm on Instagram, but like everybody else, stopped posting on the wall.
Yeah.
It was all baby stuff anyway.
I might be the last person who's still posting on the wall, and I can tell you it's not performing well. It's performing to lesser and lesser effect. And then it will perform very well for reasons I don't understand.
Yeah. I just felt guilty for all the people who had followed me like for Wednesday Chalk Day, and then I had a baby and I'm like, look at this thing I made. This is all I care about.
It is more important, in fairness.
More important, more precious. I'm finding myself like, the new job, the parks job is not, I don't get to flex many creative muscles over there, but I'm having so much fun with let's full circle crayons. Yeah. Let's Crayola. Sponsor me. I go through a lot of those. But just art.
Please no edible crayons though. We mustn't teach the children to eat the crayons.
No.
I'm glad. Yeah, thank God their legal department figured that out. Just some lawyer just scrambling like, oh God, you've been licensing our name for what? No,
we can't sanction.
You can't.
Right after the Tide Pod thing, I'm sure they all own each other.
Yeah, get ready for your Tide Pod pops coming out 2025. Well, thank you so much for being here, Mel.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
I also have a little plug right here because as this comes out, we are about to hold our gigantic student portfolio showcase back at Wieden+Kennedy as we do every year, Saturday, May 4th. Which I believe should be the Saturday after this episode comes out. We're going to be there all afternoon and into the evening, although hopefully not too late into the evening because we have to get all the things that we brought in out by the time that security is over. Ooh, that's exciting. If you hear anyone that sounds like me screaming, everyone please leave now because we need to strike. Please listen to that person and don't just continue standing around talking. But anyway, please come to Wieden+Kennedy and check out my student, work. We're going to probably have upwards of 100 students, and I'm going to guess upwards of 600 or 700 members of the design community and general community. And even if you don't know a darn thing about design, you can come on by and see some really cool stuff because there's all kinds of weird nonsense that happens there. It's one of the best, funnest things that I do. You can just come on by, but you can also get the details by visiting PSUGD _behonest on Instagram. And I really hope I got that Instagram handle right. I didn't check it beforehand, and I feel like that's always a great way to cause problems. Sorry, future Sean, if I got this wrong. But also, hey, thank you out there to all of our listeners out in listener land, the land that you live in. That's how it shows up in my stats, at least. I don't know why. Hey, if you got a moment and you're not too busy in listener land, please rate, review, and subscribe to the show from wherever you heard it. Ratings and reviews in particular are a big, big help for us, and sharing it with a friend is an even bigger one. Spread the good word to all the fellow citizens in Listenerland. That's the place where you live. Again, just to reiterate. If you think you live somewhere else, I have bad news. You've been teleported there. So you live there now. It's an exact replica of the place that you previously lived in. It's a horror movie. Bad news. If there's maybe somewhere else that you'd rather hear the show, why not visit dididothat.design and check out all of the options. That's where you can find some good images that go along with each and every episode and get linked out to where we are on LinkedIn, Instagram, and more. This has been Did I Do That? I'm Sean Schumacher. And as we always say at the end of every episode...
Did I do that? Did you want an impression?
That's what we always say. Okay, bye. All the more a treat to have you here on a day that is so very nice outside. To invite anyone into this windowless pit feels like truly something offensive, but
we don't get much outside time with our computers anyway. They get too hot, so I think we're all used to the sunny days trapped inside.
Yeah, poor little last generation Intel MacBook Pro is gonna just cook itself on this table in complete darkness. The hottest computers. Wow, I actually maybe kind of burned myself doing that. Don't touch that part of the computer while you're recording, Sean. Yikes.
I can hear the fan from here.
Yeah, it's really exactly what you don't want in a recording environment.